Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday's Alberta Transplant Institute webinar series. I'm Linda Powell, chair of the Alberta Organization Group, and I'm honored to moderate today's session, Building a Culture of Donation, the Importance of Public Education and Awareness. This is such an important topic in the realm of organ donation and transplantation. Firstly, we'd like to acknowledge Paladin for their tremendous support of the ATI seminar series. For our land acknowledgement, the University of Alberta acknowledges that we are located on Treaty 6 territory and respects the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our collective, vibrant community. We have an incredible lineup of speakers and panelists today, with 3 short presentations, remarks by 2 individuals joining our panel, followed by Q&A and discussion afterwards. We have a really full hour and ask everyone to stay within your time allotment, and I'll remind you if we get close. To all attending, thank you, and please put your questions into the chat box and we'll address the questions after the presentations. So let's get started. First of all, Toby Boulet. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Toby, who I think is familiar to most, if not all of us. He is here today to share their family story and their passion and commitment to increasing organ donation across our country after the loss of their son Logan 4 years ago in the Humboldt tragedy. As we know, Green Shirt Day is approaching, as you can see a few green shirts. And Green Shirt Day honors and recognizes those lost and surviving this devastating accident. Unfortunately, Toby's wife, Bernie, could not join us today. She's teaching full-time in Lethbridge. She is also an incredible advocate for increasing organ donation awareness and understanding, including in the school system. Toby retired from teaching, and Bernie traveled together across Canada and recently to the US to Pittsburgh to share their experience and learnings, encouraging the family discussion about organ and tissue donation. So over to you, Toby.
Thank you, Linda. I'm just excited to be here today. I mean, it sounds like a corny little cliche, but I am. And the lineup of speakers is amazing. And Bernie can't be here today, but I was given strict instructions not to talk too fast and not to use slides because I'd screw it up. So I just found a nice little backdrop here. Within days after Logan passed, Rico, Bernie, and I made a decision to learn about the world, to help learn about the world of organ and tissue donor registration, so we could become advocates for both Logan and Dana Bronze. Dana Bronze was the athletic therapist for the Broncos, and she passed away waiting to become an organ donor, but unfortunately, very unfortunately for both cases, she passed away, but it didn't work out for Dana. She passed away much too quickly. And so we did this for 2 reasons. One, to promote and get people continually thinking about organ donor tissue transplantation in Canada and registration, and to not let people forget about the Bronco tragedy. As we moved away from the sensational news of, as the current Broncos told us, the Bronco family, is that if it bleeds, it leads. We wanted to get away from if it leads as quickly as possible. And we felt as a family that if we talked about Logan and the Broncos and organ donation awareness, it would work. And it did. It did all of that. We were told by Logan's godfather about 3 weeks after the crash that they will come. We asked, who's going to come? And he said, they are. And they came. And they came. Lots of people have come to talk to us and ask us questions and ask us to speak on behalf of organ donation awareness and registration. And we've basically turned no one down. Maybe a couple groups because of timing and duplication of everything. But other than that, we say yes, just get us there, give us a place to stay. Don't even have to feed us because we eat here. And we do as best we can with the tools that we've been given. We accepted that we would be forced during our time of grieving, or still grieving, that we don't have to open our family up. And we did that. We opened up our house, our backyard, whatever people wanted to know, we told them. We held nothing back at the beginning. Later on, we held a few things back as court cases and such came up, but anything to do with organ transplantation, we've done. And we instilled with both of our children that you had to be a giver, not a taker in society. And we also instilled to them at a very early age that service is the rent you pay to live your life. So we want the world to know that, and we want people to know that in our community, to make your world a better place, you have to first make your community a better place. And that's the kind of people we are. We're both teachers. I'm retired, as Linda said, but we're both teachers in the public education system in Alberta. And we worked very hard with students and children and our own children to learn about many societal issues. And one of those issues that I taught briefly in comm and health in high school was organ transplantation, but not very much. There's not much out there. So we've been working with Jenny Ryan, and she'll talk about that later on, about what Bernie's done, about working it to push the education envelope. And I must say right now that BC Transplant and Trillium, Ontario, and Quebec, they seem to be just miles ahead of what other groups are doing. We're all catching up. We're all working very, very hard. Jenny and Bernie found a great thing called the Orgamites, and I won't take that away from Jenny. She can handle that all on her own. She's amazing at it. But we believe that you have to talk not just about the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s of education. When the golden moment comes up about transplant or something else, a teacher needs to sit back and have that discussion with their students. And Green Shirt Day, we feel, has given that opportunity to many teachers across Canada and across North America and other parts of the world as well. The new curriculums that are coming out and changes to the curriculums across the country are positive in the case of what's being allowed to be taught about organ transplantation and organ donor awareness. It's awesome. I have to put a little plug in here for Jared Heidinger. He was Logan's and Mariko's biology teacher, and his wife passed, and he donated her organs to science and to transplantation. And he taught about that in biology 10, 20, and 30 to the students at Winston Church High School. Jared's a great guy. He took the time to bring passion to it. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming this afternoon. That's just my little bit on why I'm here. We're angel donor families, a family, and we just want to help as much as we can. And we're here for anyone who wants us to talk. And Linda, you're up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toby. And with the anniversary approaching, we know that this is even more difficult. Your message is very strong. Thank you. Our next speaker is Claire Williment for a 10-minute presentation on the UK experience in building a culture of donation. Thank you, Claire, for joining us today. We know it's the evening now in London, England. In 2021, Claire Williment was appointed as the lead secretariat for the United Kingdom Organ Utilization Group, established by the government to make recommendations on how to improve transplant services. In her previous roles, Claire was responsible for developing and implementing strategies for increasing the number and quality of organs for transplant, both nationally and internationally. In 2017, she was appointed as the accountable executive for opt-out legislation implementation in the UK to oversee the development and delivery of plans within NHSBT arising from the change in their legislation. So over to you, Claire.
Thank you. So if you press next for me, please. So as Linda just mentioned, I work within NHS Blood and Transplant, and just to give you a quick run through of what we do, we provide organ donation services in the UK. That includes policies and protocols, tissue retrieval and allocation. If you press again, blood supply in England, and if you press again. We also provide diagnostic and therapeutic services. So that's a quick overview of what NHSBT does. If you click again. And why I'm here today is to talk about the awareness raising in particular that we do. So we actually cover that across 3 of those different regions. So for tissue and also in England only for blood donation and for organ donation. If you click again. And I'm there particularly to talk about organ donation and deceased donation. So if I give you a bit of a background to what we're working on in the UK, if you click. So we've been doing this for quite a while. The organ donor card started up back in the early 1970s. The organ donor register, interestingly, didn't actually get going until 1994. And NHSBT was established back in 2005. If you click again. And we've got opt-out legislation that's just fairly recently been brought in across the UK. So it actually started in Wales back in 2015, and 2020 in England, 21 in Scotland, and we're just getting Northern Ireland. They just got their legislation through a couple of weeks ago, so it's hot off the press. So they'll go live next year. So I'm going to be talking a lot about the awareness raising that we've done in the context of that change in law. So if you click again, and again. So in terms of getting awareness into the organ donor register, if you click, we have several routes. So if you just keep clicking another 2 or 3 times. So we have government, back on. We have government routes. So we have through the passport and through the driving license. And you can see there that actually most of the people within the UK that register on the organ donor register come through our driving license application, that's the DVLA, followed by online direct to us, and the next one is through their doctors. So if you click again. So if I talk about marketing, if you click again, like I just mentioned, opt-out started in Wales, and the message there was really about how the law is coming, very, very factual, and it was time to make a decision. And you can see there the person with a kind of a counting down clock saying that the law change is coming, it's time to make your decision. That went okay, but it didn't work as well as we were hoping. So they changed that, and I'm not going to risk the link, but maybe I'll send the link in to you. They changed it to be much more emotive, and you can see there if you send the link round later, it's somebody talking about the decision and saying basically, if you don't make the decision, somebody else will speak for you. So don't just make your decision about organ donation, talk about it and tell your loved ones what you would want to happen. So if you click again. And in England, we followed a very similar route. So the law is changing, it's coming, when it's going to change. And we use TV and radio marketing. Our slogan, unfortunately, well, it was brilliant at the time, was "Pass it on," which we went live with about 3 months before COVID hit the world. So obviously going live with a strapline of "Pass it on" was not appropriate in the height of the pandemic. So we had to quickly change some of that. But the central messaging and the balloon symbolism continues with the idea of, pass it on. In the final 3 months, we really ramped up the campaign and increased our marketing activity with a much more emotive campaign. But the central message was still the same. The law is changing. It's still your choice. Make your decision. So if you click again, please. And I won't talk you through all of it. This is a very busy slide, but it just gives you a sense of how we did that awareness raising. So we used paid media, we used PR, we used our digital channels, we used all the partnerships we could lay our hands on. We worked with 6,800 stakeholders, and you've got just a few of them there to get the message across. And we also have a community investment scheme, and I was very interested, we've just heard about the importance of that community work, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment. So if you click again. In Scotland, they followed a very, very similar message, and we've heard this consistently from our focus groups about how, be very, very clear about what it is you're wanting to tell the public and what it is you're wanting them to do. So Scotland followed a very similar approach with their opt-out campaign. If you click again. And it was very, very effective. So at its height, we hit 75% awareness within the England population for the change in law. So it was very effective in that awareness raising. If you click again. And so we're starting to pivot. So as the law changed, we were focusing on education. That was before the law changed. After the law changed, around that time, we went for education. The law's changing, but it's still your choice. And now we're pivoting over to share your decision, because that's very, very important. So we're in that pivoting point now. So if you click again. So this is our latest campaign, the Leave Them Certain campaign, which is, as the title suggests, leave them certain about what you want to happen. So if you just keep clicking, there's a few bullet points. So we have to motivate people, we need to prompt people, and we need to give them the confidence, because this isn't a conversation that everybody feels comfortable having. So the focus of the campaign is very much on trying to do those three things. So if you click again. And if you just, yeah, and the reason we're doing that is because there's a gap between intention. 80% of the people are happy to support organ donation, and behaviour, actually our consent rates are only 68%. And the reason most families give for not allowing donation to proceed is because they don't know what their loved one wanted, which is why that conversation is so important. And if you just keep clicking through, I won't talk to all of these bullet points. So if you click on again. So just to stress again, it's giving people that motivation to talk. And our adverts are quite hard hitting. It's a real life story about a young man who talks through how his father died, and they didn't know what he wanted, whether or not he wanted to donate, and they wish that they'd known. They talked about everything else. We never talked about that. So prompt people to give the opportunity to talk and give them the confidence to have that conversation as well. So if you click again. And the public awareness is important, but it's not all you need. So you need the public, but you also need the hospitals. You need the managers, the transplant teams, the hospital boards, the intensive care teams. And you need the infrastructure. You need government and regulators and the ethics. And for us, they're royal colleges that provide the training for medics and nurses, and the professional organisations, the societies. You need the community leaders and the patient groups and the faith leaders. And one more. And you need the media as well. So all of these people you need to speak to, and we have a very active role in going out to all of these different groups and informing them about organ donation so that they have the information and the tools that they need. So if you click again. So this is the community investment scheme. So we've learned that it's much more powerful out in the community if actually you're talking peer-to-peer. So we provide community leaders, faith leaders with the tools that they need to raise awareness within their own communities. And it's incredibly powerful. And we have faith-specific organ donation cards, for example. We go out into hospitals, we do advertising in hospitals, you can see one of our lifts there, and we provide information to hospitals about how many potential donors have they had, how many have they approached, what was their consent rate, and how many transplant rates, so that they can keep that monitoring. We have clinical leads for organ donation in all our hospitals so that they can keep that awareness going to make sure that the system is working, and we have training programs. And we're very lucky with our media. So the opt-out campaign in England was actually led by The Mirror, which is a very popular newspaper here, and it was Max Johnson, who was in desperate need of a heart transplant, and Kira Ball, who tragically died in a road accident and whose heart Max received. So it's Max and Kira's Law in honour of Max and Kira and their story and their bravery. So if you click again. So in terms of the impact that we've had, so you can see there the numbers of people on the organ donor register going up and up in the darker blue. The lighter blue is the number of opt-outs that we have. So our average is just over 40% of the UK population has opted in. It's actually higher in Scotland. There's different rates in different countries. In terms of opt-out, only 3% of the UK population has opted out. We were thinking it would be around 6%. Because that's what the figure is in Wales, but we're not there yet, although most of the countries have only changed fairly recently. But we have a 78% awareness of the law change in England and a general around 40% awareness of organ donation in general. In terms of clinical and how we've changed awareness there, we've increased our referrals dramatically. So the numbers of potential donors that get referred into us so that our specialist nurses can go out and approach the families. We've had increases in the collaborative and family approach. So that's where one of our nurses goes out with the local clinicians to talk to the families. We've got increased engagement at hospital board level so that they know what their donation activity is and their donation potential and where they need to improve. And we've got a really strong infrastructure now to share learning and best practice. So if you click again. So in summary, public marketing campaigns are very effective at driving awareness, but you do have to have that wider awareness levels as well. And it's not on one of my slides, but I was very interested to hear just now about the importance of schools. And we actually, as a result of the opt-out legislation, in England now, organ donation and blood donation and tissue donation is a mandatory part of the school curriculum for secondary school, so children between the ages of 12 and 16, which is fantastic, and we're hoping that that will start impacting on further awareness in the years to come. So if you click again, that's just me saying thank you, and I hope, Linda, that I'm within time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Claire. It's always enlightening to hear you speak, and obviously you've put heart and soul and such planful activity and resources into what you've done. So thank you for sharing. Our next speaker is Irene Phan for another 10-minute presentation on BC initiatives. Irene is part of the small but mighty communications and community initiatives team at BC Transplant. With 15 years of experience in communications, her role includes spearheading the annual creative campaign for organ donation awareness each year, creating all the digital content for social media, and writing and pitching stories to traditional media. Over to you, Irene.
Thank you so much, Linda. Okay, so again, I'm Irene, and I'm part of the communications and community relations team here at BC Transplant. So at BC Transplant, we oversee all aspects of organ donation and transplant across the province, and we manage the BC's organ donor registry. We also fund the 3 transplant centers in the lower mainland of the province and the 8 post-transplant clinics as well. And some of the teams that we have at BC Transplant include the health information management team, gathering data and reports, the quality and assurance, communications, of course, and of course, our large organ donation and hospital development team. So those are the individuals going to the hospitals, speaking to the donor families, and going to recover organs. Just quickly here, you can see the 7 pillars or 7 goals that we at BC Transplant strive to on a daily basis. But on the communications team, we try to focus on the organ donation elements of these, which I'll share with you on the next slide. And specifically here, we aim to engage British Columbians in supporting organ donation and transplant and encouraging them to register as organ donors. We help build a strong organ donation culture in British Columbia and really strive to normalize conversations about organ donation in everyday life. And of course, we develop and implement communication strategies to help improve that recipient and donor experience. So we are a team of 3, as Linda said, with Tina Robinson, who is the manager of communications, and as well as my colleague, Alicia DeCesare, who helps to manage our big volunteer program, which I'm going to get into now. So here's a great photo. It was taken pre-pandemic times back in 2018, and this was one of our anchor events during April, which is Organ Donation Awareness Month. We set up a live in-person registration at the busiest intersection of Vancouver downtown and over the lunch hour. And we really wanted to just engage the public. We had 2 booths with the Kidney Foundation of Canada. We had people coming up and asking questions about organ donation. We had forms so that people could register on the spot. And we even had a live Zumba demonstration led by double lung recipient Margaret Benson. So people were able to see the transplant recipients living life, making the best of their second chance at life. And our volunteers make up a huge part of our outreach program. We work with almost 200 volunteers all across the province, and they're mainly living kidney donors, transplant recipients, and donor families. And we really do rely on them to get our story out there. We are very much engaged in the community. Again, in 2019, our most normal year pre-pandemic, our volunteers put in about over 1,200 volunteer hours that year. And what I mean by that is that they're out in the public. They are with their registration booths. They're registering people on the spot. We're at the BMO Marathon. We're at farmers markets. We're doing workplace lunch and learns. And this really gives them the opportunity to share their story and ultimately inspire people to register as organ donors. And because we have volunteers all over the province, we do try and encourage them to set up in their own communities, schools, any opportunities that they see to really go and share their stories. Of course, in the pandemic, we have moved over to more of a virtual approach. We've done some online webinars and presentations. And while there is impact there, we did take a hit in terms of the impact that we have, just because, as you know, the in-person is so much more impactful when you can see and hear their stories. And their stories are the real hook for us. Playing here, storytelling, the best stories feature real people with real stories. There's that human connection that is undeniable. You get to hear stories from the audience. They hear it, they remember it, then they will take it back and have that conversation with their friends and family. So we really try to showcase that with all of our volunteers. One of the campaigns that we do is every 1 to 2 years, we ask our volunteers to come together for a photo shoot campaign. So we ask about 10 to 15 groups to come in with their families. We take beautiful photos of them, and then throughout the year, we share this online through website stories, social media, and pitching to media as well. In the middle here, you see group of 3 girls, Scotty, Baker, and Elliot. They're holding a photo of Vicky, their grandmother, who was an organ donor. But the interesting and unique part of this story is that Vicky was actually waiting for a double lung transplant and instead became an organ donor. So when we get to know these people and their real stories, we hear these things that set them apart. And as you know, every recipient has their unique story, and we're here to help them share that. And we're so grateful. I personally met a big number of our volunteers, and just hearing their lived experience and being able to write about that, share it with the public, and in turn, hoping to raise more public education about it is really amazing for us to be able to do as a comms team. Here's one example of Bin and Rima, pictured on the previous slide. Their sisters, Rima donated her kidney to Bin, and last October during Living Donation Kidney Week, we actually took their photos, the story that we created, and we pitched it to media. And we got some local pickup from there. We contacted the South Asian ethnic media, and there was really nice pickup from that as well. So this is an example of how we're using their stories to go out into the community and see if there's any pickup for that. Again, this is a series of stories we did last April during Organ Donation Awareness Month. And we really are grateful that we work with volunteers in all corners of the province, so that we have a story to tell about donor family up north in Prince George, and then on the island in Victoria, and of course the Lower Mainland. So when media come to us, either proactive or reactive, we have almost 200 volunteers who are media trained on BC transplant messaging, who can go and share their story. And oftentimes we find that media prefer to speak to a transplant recipient, living donor, donor family over a BC transplant spokesperson or even a physician, because they want that human connection. They want that hook to connect with the community of viewers who are watching the news or reading their news stories. Here's another great example of how this has done really well for us. This is an infographic we created and released earlier in February, and it shows the statistics of how many deceased donors we had last year, how many living kidney donors, how many people received a transplant, and some of the records that we broke. And this usually does really well for us on social media. We shared this on Facebook, and within 24 hours, it had a reach of over 60,000 people. And that's thanks to our volunteers, thanks to our social online community who are sharing this. They're commenting, they're doing the work for us and kind of getting that organic reach. And we're so grateful that we have this community online that we can interact with. We are very, very active on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We post videos to YouTube, and last year we introduced LinkedIn. Our team's capacity can't take on the newer platforms like TikTok and Snapchat just yet, but we're sticking to these platforms, and they're tried and true for us, and they work very well. Here are a couple of the other annual events that we have, again, using our volunteer community. I want to highlight Transplant Heroes Week and Operation Popcorn. And that's an opportunity for our volunteer groups, all across the province to visit the hospitals and transplant clinics and thank the healthcare teams in person. And that human connection, again, for the healthcare team, they rarely get to see the other side of organ donation. the smiling, happy recipient telling stories of how many more grandchildren they've had since transplant. We invite media to this, and they get to capture these real life connections and thank you messages in person. And that does really well for us in traditional media and social media as well. Another milestone that we like to celebrate is, our 500th heart recipient, our 5,000th transplant recipient in BC. This event happened and took place at St. Paul's Hospital, one of the transplant centers here in BC. We invited the Minister of Health to come give a speech. We invited recipients. You see the little pink heart stickers on their chest. When they registered in, we told them what number they were on the list of 500. So it's just a really unique touch point for them as well to come together. And again, great opportunity to spread awareness in media and social media. Another great photo, this was our Walks of Life event in 2019 during April. We had people come together to honor their donor families. We had them drop green flowers into Falls Creek, give a moment of silence. It's one of my favorite photos. It happened on a really beautiful day along Science World. We hope to do this again, maybe this year or next year once things are safe for our recipients. And we do have a small marketing and advertising budget as well. We spend that mainly on buying Google ads for YouTube, social media. We do radio advertisements. We do paid partnerships with some big media like Daily Hive, and they helped us to create a viral Instagram stories, and they had the highest impressions ever on their stories, over 200,000 impressions. So we do have some money to play with so that we can kind of boost our message further. Our government relations, we have partnerships with Service BC and ICBC where people can come in person to register their decision with forms in person. Again, during the pandemic, this has scaled back because of reducing the touch points, but we're trying to figure out, QR codes and things to take us into the future. Lastly, my last two slides. One is we're trying to break into education. As you heard kind of Toby and Claire talk about, we have grade 12 scholarships that we're offering for students who do an organ donation awareness project in school. We're working with some high school teachers on introducing a curriculum as well. So while I think we do a really good job, there's always opportunities. Here in BC, we have only 30%, I believe, sorry, in Canada, only 30% who have consented to registration. So we can break into different communities, different languages, and really keep pushing forward to make sure that we boost awareness about organ donation all over the province. That was quick, but thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you so much, Irene. That was very informative. And obviously you've developed lots of partnerships and lots of thoughts for all of us in developing our own programs in our own jurisdictions and fine tuning them. So we'll now move to the panel discussion component of the session with two panelists making short remarks, Roxanne Ferner, followed by Jenny Ryan. So first up is Roxanne. Roxanne is an organ recipient, speaking and representing the reason we are all here. So Roxanne, could you introduce yourself, turn on your camera, and over to you for your remarks.
Thank you, Linda. I'm just really thrilled to be here today. I'm honored, and it's great to be with like-minded people who have a passion for spreading awareness about organ donation. And I just want to say that it's a special honor to meet Toby. And I just really wanted to say how sorry I am for your loss. And the work you've done with Green Shirt Day is a great initiative to increase organ donor awareness. You'll notice that I'm wearing my Humboldt Broncos jersey today. When I first heard that Logan was an organ donor, it was tragic and it was heroic, and it was truly humbling for me because it just reminded me about how very blessed I am to be here living my best life. Logan was a hero, and the whole Boulet family and the Logan Effect have been so instrumental in increasing the awareness of organ donation. And for that, you have my utmost thanks. So, my name is Roxanne. I am 53 years old, and I had my first transplant when I was 17. I've had a total of 4 transplants, 2 livers and 2 kidneys, and all were single organs. I didn't have any double up ones. They were all from deceased donors. In June, this liver here will have been with me for 35 years. I was the 87th liver transplant done in Canada, and that was in 1987. To my knowledge, I am the second longest living transplant recipient, longest living liver transplant recipient in Canada. So I think I'm a lifer, and I think I'll keep this one. My kidney, however, is much more boring. It is one of thousands, and it is almost 9 years post, and that's just great. When I left the hospital after my first transplant, it was the liver, the doctors told me to go out and have fun, live my life, and don't eat grapefruit, and maybe not play tackle football. And so I went on to get my degree in physiotherapy at the U of A. And I got married, and I helped to raise 2 wonderful stepchildren. And now I have 6 absolutely adorable great grandchildren that I just adore. I've been able to travel. I've been snorkeling and hiking and skiing and whitewater rafting and zip lining. No skydiving. No, it's no reason to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. These days, I am a full-time professional volunteer. I help to teach lifestyle management strategies to people who have chronic conditions. And I also volunteer in programs in the special needs community. I'm an amateur photographer and painter. I'm an eternal student. And I also puzzle and Lego, and I play dinosaurs, and I watch hockey, and I color, and I go sledding, and I trampolining, and Spider-Man is a huge part of my life. I still have so many more things to do and places to see, and I refuse to let my health interfere with anything that I want to do. If I want it, I figure out a way to get it done. Although that mentality has not improved my basketball skills, even a little. I've had a lifetime of adventures with more to come. And thanks to the selfless gifts of donation by my donors and their brave and generous families. This hasn't been easy by any means. It has been a really hard fought 35 years. I spent a total of 11 years on hemodialysis, waiting for donor kidneys to become available. My recoveries have never been easy. Some people get out of the hospital in 5 days. I'm more of a 3-month kind of gal. I never follow the textbook. I like to keep my doctors on their toes. The medications can be very harsh, and I deal with some nasty side effects. And sometimes I get really ridiculous infections that normal people wouldn't, but because I'm immune suppressed, these infections, they kind of take it all out of it. But is it worth it? Absolutely. I really would not have it any other way. I take it one day at a time. I stay grateful and positive, and I refuse to let any of my health conditions define me. Several years ago, I read that only 14% of Albertans waiting for an organ actually get one. And I've had 4. And I just have here, where is, oh, that's this one. I just wanted to point out here, up here, 20.6 donors per million population. That's deceased donors. And living donors, 15 donors per million population. And that is just abysmal. It's terrible. And I believe that an opt-out program is crucial all across Canada. We really need to get that. The need for donors is truly, really very desperate. And I am just really blessed to be here. I'm healthy and strong, and I'm very grateful for the selfless gift of my organ donors and their families. And I will see you all on Green Shirt Day.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Roxanne, for sharing your story. And that's why we're all here, and very poignant comments. Now I'd like to invite Jenny Ryan to speak. Jenny is with Canadian Blood Services, and Jenny is passionate in the area of communications and education, and has done incredible work, especially in the education realm recently. So Jenny, over to you, and if you could introduce yourself as well.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Roxanne. That was lovely to hear. It's always fantastic to hear from the recipient and how their life has been affected by donation. My name is Jenny Ryan. I'm the Program Manager for Public Education and Awareness in Organ Tissue Donation at Canadian Blood Services. I'm really grateful to be here with all of you to talk about the best part of my job and the work we've been doing on increasing education opportunities for younger Canadians. As you may know, a key role for Canadian Blood Services in organ tissue donation is to facilitate national collaboration. And the main way we do this is through our many advisory committees. And one of these committees is focused on public education and awareness. And some of the members are here on this call today. The membership comprises representatives from organ donation organizations across the country. In 2019, long ago, when we were able to meet in person, we brought this group together along with a number of community members and advocates for 2 days. And the intent of that meeting was to identify some key priorities from a national perspective to help the system to get more people talking about organ donation and registering their intent about it. And at this meeting, youth education was identified as one of those key priorities. We figure by educating the next generation of donors, we could successfully shift our culture to one of donation where it becomes the norm and not the exception. So we took steps to better understand what was already out there, what resources had already been developed in Canada in different jurisdictions, and what we could learn from what was happening around the world. We found a common theme for successful programs. Certainly it's not one based on recruitment. We're not recruiting donors, but rather we're educating, we're providing facts, we're equipping students and their families with the information they need to have meaningful conversations, not sad or scary conversations, but meaningful conversations about organ donation. So they have the information they need to make a decision that's right for them, if ever the time were to come. So with a wealth of resources and understanding in hand, we decided to create a portal to make these tools, school programs, videos, books, lesson plans, posters, and more, to make them easily and freely available to teachers, to students, and their families. We tagged each of these resources by age, by grade, by media type, by subject area, and so on. We updated some of the older content where we could get permission to do so, and we provided context that helps a resource developed in one province be suitable for another province. Ontario's One Life, Many Gifts, for example, with a few regional statistics and local patient stories, it can be made relevant and appropriate for classrooms in another province. Chain of Life, which Toby referred to briefly, is a fantastic Quebec-based program that we're hoping to help expand beyond that province and make it easy for teachers in other jurisdictions to use it. These are programs for high school students, and they have a proven track record. They can be easily linked to existing curriculum requirements, no matter where you are. Meanwhile, for younger students, we followed up on an early discovery of something called the Orgamites. This was discovered thanks to Toby Boulet, who is seeking resources for her grade 2 class to support the very first Green Shirt Day in 2019. And at the time, she wasn't able to find anything suitable for her students until she stumbled upon this really great thing called the Orgamites. So this is a global program. It was the first of its kind, established about 5 or more years ago in the UK. The Orgamites really shares our philosophy about education for younger students. Basically, they're a team, if you haven't already met them, they're a team of cute animated characters, 9 life-saving organs found in every one of us. They're known as the mighty organs because they represent the ones that are most donated or transplanted. The Orgamites teach kids about keeping their organs healthy and strong and the powerful impact of kindness, tying the ideas of caring for one's community and caring for the planet to the concept of organ donation and caring for each other. In early 2021, we reached out to the generous and creative creator of the Orgamites, Royden Turner, and we were able to license the Orgamites for Canada. So over the past many months, we've developed an amazing partnership and adapted the teacher toolkits, videos, and other resources for Canadian teachers from kindergarten to grade 5. And we've also helped to create a brand new resource called the Mighty Kind Movement that's suitable for students up to grade 8. Toolkit number 1, Meet Your Mighty Organs, actually incorporates Logan's story as both an in-class discussion topic and a take-home resource to learn about the powerful impact of Logan's kindness and how his life-saving act inspired his community and clearly the nation. So this year, the Orgamites are fully on board to support Green Shirt Day. You'll see them out there with their green shirts, their green jerseys on. And we've also created a resource page on the portal to support Green Shirt Day and provide easy access to some of these tools and resources for teachers on that day to learn about organ donation and really honor Logan's legacy in doing so. This page has been built with resources that Toby helped pull together, presentation decks that he's done, and a lot of it is based on some really good stuff that BC Transplant had created originally. I've had the good fortune of connecting with inspiring educators and advocates over the last few months. It's been a joy. Thank you, Jan. Logan's legacy continues to inspire us, and we will build more. We will keep the conversation going, and I think we really do have the potential to change and shift that culture through this effort. Organ donation has that generational impact. It saves lives, it gives hope, creates memories. And if you haven't already, please visit the portal, share the resources, let the folks in your life of all ages discover and learn about the Orgamites so we can equip, inform, and empower that next generation of donors, leaders, and policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Tremendous. And I think as we've all seen, there are so many partnerships and collaborative work happening throughout the world, across the country, to make sure that the discussion about organ donation and transplantation is out there. So fantastic. So if all of the presenters and panelists could open up your cameras, and we'll have a Q&A now. Encourage individuals to put questions into the chat box and I'll try to pick them up. But as we get started, Claire, I have one for you. There's so many different stakeholders, professional and public, that need to be collaborative and aligned for a successful donation program. Based on your experience, how did you tailor the messaging and collaboration with different stakeholders?
So I covered some of it in the presentation that I gave, and you saw, I mean, literally thousands of people that we work with, and it's difficult to tailor it, you know, perfectly to every single one of those thousands. But we do quite a lot of tailoring. And so, for example, through the opt-out work, quite a lot of the focus that I had was with the faith groups. And I worked particularly with the Jewish community, where there were concerns around organ donation and, you know, how is it in line with their faith, and talking it through. And a lot of it is spending time talking through what are they concerned about, what are the processes, being very open and honest and transparent. And then, you know, where's the middle point? And then, so we did a lot of work, and they came out, you know, incredibly supportive of organ donation, and one of our strongest partners. And we provided them with the tools that they need to go out to their own community. So a lot of how we tailor it is relying on us providing the basic information over to our partners, over to community leaders, and them then knowing what is the best approach for their own communities. For the hospitals, it's slightly easier. We know what they need. We know the policies and the protocols, so we provide all of that. And we provide information in a range of different formats as well. So we provide it web-based, we provide printed things, we put things on social media, we put things on, we do TV adverts, we do radio adverts, we do TV and radio with the, targeted at specific communities. So we try to, there is no one size fits all. And we try to tailor it very carefully. All of that takes time and resources, but it really pays off, and it's very much appreciated. And it's also important to remember that not everybody's digitally aware. Not everybody spends all their time obsessing on their phones in the same way that my 14-year-old does. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we have a whole range of different approaches.
So thank you. So leveraging off that comment, Irene, perhaps you could respond to this question is, in BC, many rural remote communities, how do you engage those communities in the conversation, especially when often there isn't the digital connectivity?
So, you know, again, I've mentioned this a lot, but it's really truly thanks to our widespread volunteer group. You know, a lot of the times they come to us as well. You know, there are some recruiting efforts, but oftentimes they might see us post about it on social media or hear about it from a friend. And there's an application process to which we accept volunteers to. And we're very blessed that we have volunteers that reach smaller communities. And of course, not all of them are tech savvy, and we do rely a lot on social media, but they're there on the ground helping to push the message too in those in-person community events. I think we did a couple of virtual Rotary group presentations as well in the rural communities, and they're out there, they're pushing the message, whether it's to a small group at the community center, their Rotary group, their school. We do rely a lot on our volunteers and local media. So we have the volunteers, we pitch the story, and together we have that reach as far as we can in terms of all across the province.
So Irene, there's an additional follow-up question here. In your social media efforts, have you encountered negative pushback, trolls, misinformation, and how have you handled that?
Good question, Patricia. And we are very fortunate so far that I would say 99% of the comments and direct messages we receive on social are positive. And so we don't have to deal with that very often. But the answer to that is once in a while, we might have someone comment something, you know, quite abrasive. And in that event, I would hide or maybe even delete the comment. And that's really, really rare. Like I've only maybe done that once or twice in the 4 years that I've managed our social media. Oftentimes, your question about misinformation, that does happen. But it's really cool to see because someone might ask a question about organ donation or transplant. And rather than BC Transplant jumping on and responding, we have people in our community who jump right on that and help to respond for us, which is really, really cool to see. And it's all done in a very neutral way, and they're just helping to provide information. So they jump in to help answer the question or share their stories, and that's that. And we don't have to get involved, which is what we prefer, actually. But BC Transplant here, we kind of report into the Provincial Health Services Authority, which you see in my background here. And they have a social media manager who kind of helps to guide us through that as well. And they actually receive you know, a lot more of the maybe negative comments. So we kind of learn and live through their experiences. But fortunately for us so far, we share a lot of positive stories and we get a lot of positive feedback.
Thank you. Jenny, a question for you about education. And how do you work with governments, provinces, and health authorities to incorporate education into the curriculum? That seems to be a challenge. And I know that's a long question or short question with a long answer. But could you provide a couple of comments on that?
Sure. So we know some jurisdictions have been successful in getting organ donation curriculum baked into the resources that they have for their teachers. It's not the case everywhere. I don't think we're going to have the same situation in every province or even every school board. So what we're trying to do now is kind of grassroots to make that organic outreach to teachers. And I think this past few months experience that has been in Alberta, reaching out to teachers and through the Teacher Association has been really interesting because we can see that there is a need and a desire for this content. And if we make it available, free, easy to access, we help teachers know where it ties into their curriculum requirements. I think we'll find more success going that way and having teachers ask for it through their channels rather than it being forced from the top down, because you want them to want to teach it. And I think that's a really important part of it. And that's something they've done in Quebec really well with Chain of Life.
Fantastic, thank you. Murray has a question for Claire. Is the Welsh experience in advance of the rest of the UK particularly helpful?
Yeah, so we've now had opt-out legislation going live or coming live across 7 different countries across 7 years. And the Wales going first provided a couple of benefits. So first, as I mentioned earlier on, it meant that we could learn from what they did in Wales and their advertising campaigns and apply it every time. And the fact that it's been a staggered approach means that we learn something new every time a different campaign is launched, which means that we can apply that lessons learned. So Northern Ireland's up last, and I think we'll just about have it pegged by this time next year. But I think it also came up with some advantages in terms of everybody was looking to Wales to see how it would work out and what would happen, and the fact that actually the families were still always involved, and it did remain people's choices, and it just provided that reassurance, I think, to the other UK countries and territories. Whereas I think if we'd gone live across the whole country all at once, we may have had a higher rate of opt-outs because of concerns. Because you've got to continually train your teams up in slightly different legislation every time. So there are pros and cons, but it definitely helped in learning lessons as we went along.
Thank you. So we just have a couple of minutes left. So I have one question that I'd like to pose to both Roxanne and Toby. First, Roxanne, knowing what you've gone through, is there something that you wished you had known or would have been helpful before you started your journey in terms of your own awareness and education?
I would have to say that there was no awareness whatsoever. There was no education. I was in a coma by that point, so I really it didn't bother me at all, but like my family, they really struggled with that. But when I left the hospital, there was no information, there was no education, and yeah, and I have to say that it's not really that much better anymore. And so I think it's really important that we use all of the strategies at our disposal to try and raise organ donor awareness, because so far it's just been really not that great.
Thanks, Roxanne. Toby, final comments? You're on mute, I think.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
But I didn't think I was gonna ask me a question. So we've learned a lot and traveled a lot, like in our lives in 4 years. But certainly the one that sticks with us most at the very beginning, we were told that it's important that people make the decision what they want to do, and that they communicate that decision back to their family. So we've been major supporters of an opt-in program and the communication, which we phrase the kitchen table talk. And Claire talked about that too, the importance of actually communicating what do you want to have happen. In our case, Logan had done that with me, but I hadn't told Bernie because I didn't want to talk about it. But the fact is that that happened, and then Bernie offered, and then we clearly communicated what Logan wanted. In the case of opt-in versus whatever Nova Scotia wants to presume consent, you have to have a Claire's put in place. If it's not there, what the UK's done, then it's not going to happen. BC Transplant's done a phenomenal job of getting out there and doing many, many things. And I can only say that we've learned that from going across Canada and talking to people, what provinces do have, what provinces don't have, where the gaps are, and where they have to be filled in. That's about it, I guess. And thank you very much. It's been wonderful again today. Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. It was brought to my attention that Michelle Hounslow has a question, and I do not see it in the chat. Michelle, could you bring it forward? We have about 30 seconds. No? Okay. We've reached the end of the session. A huge thank you to our speakers, panelists, and attendees. And a shout out to Jan Clemes, hi Jan, Alberta Director of the CTA, who spurred us all with the concept for this session. Please wear green on April 7th to recognize Green Shirt Day. And for next week's seminar on March 30th, the ATI is very pleased to have Dr. Jay Kizanakadu presenting on immunomodulating organ engineering to prevent transplant rejection. So we hope you'll see you there. And I believe the link is in the chat box. And again, a huge thank you to all of our presenters and panelists on a very great discussion about organ and tissue donation, education and awareness, such an important topic. So have a great day, everyone, and see you next week. Bye now.